So, I've made the decision I'm not going to retire at any time expected of me, and I'm not going to stop working unless some huge event happens to derail me for at least the next 20 years. Now, it may have escaped your attention that I'm no longer 20 or even 40. In fact, many people are looking to retire by my age. They may even have done so. So this might sound like a fairly extreme decision, and I can understand how it might come across like some sad bloke with no outside life to focus on, trying to stay busy. So I thought it might be interesting if I listed my reasons why I'm going to keep working, and what I'll do as well is put some others in just to see if any of these resonate with you. In fact, let's start there. So, if you're wondering whether you should retire and have some hesitations, are any of these the reason why? Let's start with money. Obviously it's a biggie, and the number of unknowable variables like inflation, life expectancy, healthcare costs make it almost impossible to be certain you'll have enough to live on for the next, well, how long? Obviously the possibility of money running out reduces the longer you work. And for me, well, yes, I do have savings, but like most people, I don't know if they're going to be enough. The question for me is made really unanswerable by the fact that I come from a family of pretty long-lived people. My dad died not that long ago at 93, and he added 10 years onto his own dad's tally. I reckon I could hang around for at least another 40 years. Over that time, who can foretell what will happen to all those other variables? Not me, that's for sure. Another reason, social isolation. After maybe 40 years of sharing rooms and offices with people, whether you like it or not, getting a replacement social structure in place can be a daunting prospect. It's just a fact that the obligation to interact with people, as much as we might dislike a person here or there, is actually one of the great benefits of work. I have an interesting history when it comes to working with people. I've worked and led teams of between 2 and 200. It's one of the things I love about work. The question is though, how would that get replicated if I stopped work altogether? It's quite a tough one. I know everybody says join a club or association or something, but these always feel a bit lacking in purpose to me. The thing is, it kind of boils down to teams again, doesn't it? I love the point you get to where you realise that your work colleagues have become a team almost in spite of themselves. It's things like deadlines and frankly a bit of stress that moulds people into a team, and it's always a bit false if there's no real jeopardy or money involved. Lack of structure. We're creatures of habit. Routines are a comfort, and it's an oft-quoted fact that retired folk feel cut adrift from the world when the structure of work disappears. I don't have this as a major consideration, to be honest. I have had instilled in me from an early age the need to have structures, so I don't really have this one high on my list. But have you thought about it? What feels like a glorious release from the disciplines and routines can become a directionless nightmare pretty quickly. Cognitive decline. This is a really interesting one. It's an old truism that you use it or you lose it. I prefer to be a bit more scientific, and I've been hugely influenced by two things. Firstly, this book, it's Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Boiling it down, his idea is that a certain amount of stress and strain is actually good for you. It keeps your brain under a good degree of stress in the same way that weight training puts your body under a load and makes it more strong as a result. Now that sounds like really good sense to me. Then, secondly, I saw the impact that retirement had on my own dad. Now he was a Cold War bomber pilot and had operated for 40 years under significant stress. Nothing fazed him. His calmness under pressure was a defining trait along with intellectual curiosity. Then he retired, and it seemed like he almost immediately began to get less and less interested in everything around him. He never suffered from anything like Alzheimer's, but his world and his interest in it seemed to become much less and less to me, and I'm sure the two were linked. The easy, worry-free life had a definite downside. Identity crisis. This might be a factor for many people who've spent their whole life in a single role, and I can see how your work can come to define you. When people say, "Who are you?" you answer, "I'm an accountant," or "I'm an engineer." But for me, this one's not so great, possibly because I've never felt defined by my job, and I've had a few as well. Loss of status. I can see how this would be a thing, and if I'm honest, maybe there's something for me there too. It's not so much losing my title of IT consultant, so much as becoming retired. It feels like the race is run, and for me that's definitely how I feel. it kind of writes off a third of your life, doesn't it? Relationships. Now I've seen this quoted as a factor, and it's an old cliche that spouses can't stand the other half being under their feet after the other one retires. I can see that this would be an issue, but I've spent several years working from home already now, so the domestic and relationship factors I don't think are too much of a concern. In fact, we love spending time with each other. There are others that I've researched as being reasons to stay working, and things like delaying the start of drawing down on your retirement benefits and continuing to make a contribution to society are mentioned, and then let's talk about them briefly here because they may be specific to you. In my case, I don't see them as being particularly appropriate for me. The first one is symptomatic of the overall money question I've already talked about. The second one is a bit more of a thorny issue. I can come up with many ways that I believe, along with others, that I've made a contribution to society, and maybe we'll address that in another video, but for now I'm going to park it. So taking all of these things into account, I'm not retiring at all in the short term. Frankly, I enjoy the stimulation so much, and the byproduct of money is a draw as well. In my book, these are two great reasons not to retire as far as I'm concerned. But what do you think? Have I got it wrong? Can you see trouble ahead? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time as we start to put in place the real world elements that I've got to enable me to keep working, and that you can enable if you fancy doing it as well. And I'll see you soon.